الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today is the 20th of Ramadan, 1445. We'll continue the biography of the Prophet ﷺ. So we saw yesterday that the Najashi hosted the Muslims and did not want to send them back with Amr ibn al-As. And so obviously now when Quraysh realized that the Muslims are being given safe haven in Abyssinia, they were upset at that, and they decided to kill the Prophet ﷺ this time. So the Prophet ﷺ, as we saw before, because he was from the tribe of Bani Hashim, Quraysh did not dare kill him, and he was praying openly in the Kaaba. And at one point, he had an incident that happened with Utayba bin Abi Lahab. So Utayba bin Abi Lahab was one of the children of Abu Lahab, and he once approached the Prophet ﷺ. And then he shouted at him. He said, "I disbelieve in when najmi idha hawa, by the star when it goes down. And I disbelieve in whom you say dana fatadalla, approached and came closer. In other words, I do not believe in any of the Quran." And then he started to deal arrogantly with the Prophet ﷺ and try to hit him, and he even spat at him. But the spit did not touch the Prophet ﷺ's face. So the Prophet ﷺ got angry, so he made a dua against him. He said, "Allahumma sallit alayhi kalban min kilabik." Oh Allah, set one of your dogs upon him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to the Prophet ﷺ's dua, because once Utayba was with some of his companions from Quraysh, and they had gone out to Syria for a trade, and they took accommodation in an area called the Zarqa. At that point, a lion approached the group, to the great fear of Utayba. He realized that the dua of the Prophet ﷺ was going to be answered. So he said, "Woe to my brother, this lion will surely consume me, just as Muhammad ﷺ supplicated. He ﷺ has really killed me in Syria while he was in Mecca." So the lion jumped on him, snatched him from his people, and crushed his head. So the Prophet ﷺ made dua against him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed him. It's also reported that another idolater named Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayth once pressed the Prophet ﷺ's neck. Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayth is the same one as we mentioned before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of him, revealed the ayah, وَيَوْمَ يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. So on the day of judgment, when the unjust doer, this was the reason why Allah revealed that, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayth is going to bite on his hands, his fingers, because of remorse, and he's going to say, "I wish I followed the Prophet. I wish I did not take such and such person as a close friend." Because as we said, he was a close friend of one of the polytheists that heard that he became Muslim, so he told him, I'm never gonna speak to you again until you go and spit at Muhammad ﷺ's face. So he did that, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah. So because of his friend, he destroyed his future in the hereafter. So that's why we said a person needs to choose his friends selectively, and as the Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih," the person is on the religion of his best friend. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ, so that each and every one of you know and see who his best friend is. So this Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayth, not only did he spit on the Prophet ﷺ, once he also came and put his feet on the neck of the Prophet ﷺ when he was making sujood, to the point that he even broke the Prophet ﷺ's neck. Also Abu Jahl once addressed some of his accomplices, the evildoers, and the problem with these people is that they were all evildoers, and none of them stopped the others from doing evil. That's why it's very important to stop a person if he's doing evil. Nahi al munkar. This is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that a sect among the Jews were cursed at the tongue of Dawood and Isa. لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى بن مريم ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر يفعلوه. They used to not stop each other from doing evil things. So we Muslims should not be like that. We Muslims should stop evil. So if your best friend, your family member, someone that you know, even in the street, you see evil happening, you try to change it at least with your tongue. Of course, if it's someone under your own control, like your children, your family members, you must stop that evil with your own hand. The least you can do is at least stop it with your own heart. Don't condone it. Don't say, oh, it's not my business. Everybody has freedom to do what they want. There's no such thing. You have to hate that evil at least with your heart. So Abu Jahl, told his cronies, he says, it seems that Muhammad is determined on going on and finding faults with our religion, degrading our forefathers, discrediting our way of life, and abusing our gods. I bear witness to our God that it will carry a heavy rock and drop it on Muhammad's head while he is making sujood. And I'm not afraid of what his clan, Banu Abdul Manaf, might do. So if you remember in the beginning of the Sira, Abdul Manaf is the father of Hashim. It was the father of Al-Muttalib, who was the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Abdul Manaf is one of the great grandfathers of the Prophet ﷺ. And his cronies, they approved of that and said, okay, go do it. So what he did is that, as recorded by Ibn Ishaq on the authority of Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As radiallahu anhuma, he said some of the people of the Quraysh were at Al-Hijr. Al-Hijr is the circular area by the Kaaba. It's actually part of the Kaaba, and people of Quraysh used to sit there, and they were complaining that they had been too patient with Prophet ﷺ, who suddenly appeared and started making tawaf. So they started to wink at him and utter sarcastic comments and mocking him. But he ﷺ remained silent for two circumambulations. First time, be quiet. Second time, he was quiet. The third time, he stopped and addressed them, and he told them, أتسمعون يا معشر قريش أما والذي نفسي بيده لقد جئتكم بالذبح فأخذت القوم كلمته حتى ما منهم رجل إلا كأنما على رأسه طائر واقع حتى إن أشدهم فيه لا يرفعه بأحسن ما يجد ويقول انصرف يا أبا القاسم فوالله ما كنت جهولا. So he alayhi salam, first time he was quiet, second time he was quiet. And this is what happens sometimes when evil manifests itself. When you're quiet and you don't try to change it, it starts getting bigger and blowing up. So because he was quiet alayhi salam, they kept on mocking him. First time, second time, third time, he stopped and he says, "O people of Quraysh, listen, I swear by Allah in whose hand is my soul, that you will one day be slaughtered to pieces." So as soon as he told them these words, these Quraysh that were all of a sudden, mocking him and stuff, they got scared. And they started trying to comfort him, telling him, "Oh, you can leave Abu al-Qasim, you have never been foolish." They got scared. So sometimes evildoers, sometimes, it's a joke. I said, those people, sometimes they get drunk and they go and start yelling and shouting. If you come and give him one smack, he's going to be crying like a baby. He's going like a baby. It's because, why is he shouting? Because no one is telling him to stop. Of course, I'm talking about Muslim countries, not here. Here, they can let them shout all they want. This is their, here they have the right to do that. But in any event, so sometimes, evil, it takes a small thing to change it. So the following morning, obviously, they didn't like what happened. So they gathered again and they say, "Oh, see what he told us yesterday?" So they surrounded him this time, alayhi salatu salam, and they start strangling him by his clothes. At that point, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh came crying and running to him and telling them, "Do you want to kill a man just because he says, 'My Lord is Allah'? Ayyaqul Rabbi Allah?" Then they finally left him alone. And Ibn Amr bin al-As said that was the worst behavior I had ever seen from Quraysh. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreased some things to help Islam and Muslims, and what happened is the conversion of Hamza bin Abdul Talib. Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, who was the cousin of the Prophet, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and also his brother through suckling. If you remember, we saw in the beginning, Hamza radiallahu anh was suckled by two ladies that suckled the Prophet ﷺ, Halima and also Thuwayba, the slave girl of Abu Lahab. So he is his brother in suckling as well. So what happened is that the Prophet ﷺ one day was seated on the Safa, the Mount Safa, when Abu Jahl happened to pass by and accused the religion preached by the Prophet ﷺ. But Muhammad ﷺ kept silent and did not utter a single word. So he ﷺ, sometimes would fight back, sometimes would leave the ignorance alone. Abu Jahl then, he went, because he went and checked, he took a stone and then he threw it at the Prophet ﷺ's head and he cracked it, and he ﷺ was bleeding. And then Abu Jahl was happy with what he did, and he went to join Quraysh, his cronies in their assembly place by the Kaaba. Shortly after, Hamza radiallahu anh was returning from a hunting expedition. He used to hunt lions, etc. Passed by the same way. He had his bow hanging from his shoulder, and the slave girl belonging to Abdullah bin Jad'an, who had seen what happened to the Prophet ﷺ, came to Hamza and told him the whole story of the attack. So when he heard that, this is his brother and also his nephew, Hamza radiallahu anh was deeply offended. And then he hurried to Al-Kaaba, and there, when he saw Abu Jahl in the courtyard of the Kaaba, he struck his bow upon his head violently. So he hit him back. So he said, you have been abusing Muhammad, I too follow his religion and profess what he preaches. So, of course, he wasn't a Muslim at the time. But out of, how should I say, it's not really arrogance, but out of pride, he's telling him that, you did this to Prophet ﷺ, to my nephew because Muslim, then come and do it to me if you are man enough. But the fact that he uttered it actually turned out to be reality after that. So of course the men of Bani Makhzum came to the help of Abu Jahl, and the men of Bani Hashim wanted to provide help to Hamza, but then Abu Jahl told them, it's okay, leave Abu Umara alone. By Allah, I did shamelessly abuse his nephew, that means Prophet ﷺ. So in fact, Hamza's conversion derived initially from the pride of a man who would not accept the concept of others humiliating his relative, Muhammad ﷺ. But later on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purified his nature, and he managed to grasp the most trustworthy handhold faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he proved to be a great source of strength to Islam. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the strong slave is more beloved and dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak slave. And in each of these two types, there is goodness. But of course, a slave meaning slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if a believer, he has power, whether wealth, whether political power, whether something else, he can actually achieve a lot of benefits for the religion of Islam. So we Muslims, we are not the type of people that seek to be meek people, just be in the masajid and, some people they don't work, they say, I'm going to worship Allah in the masjid my whole life. This is not us. We always have to attain the pinnacle of everything in this dunya and also in the religion. Okay, for us we have both. The Christians, they go for dunya. The Jews, they go for the worship. They're priests anyway. They're rabbis. But we take both. We take both. Okay, because when you have a strong position in the society, you are able to help the Muslims. And actually, just something to note, and I don't know if you brothers know or not, but Canada, mashallah, was the first country to pass a law banning the sale of weapons to Israel this month in March. The law was passed in Parliament by 204, 200 and something. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Why? Because alhamdulillah, there's enough Muslims here. They are commingling with the politicians, this and that. So that's a good thing that's happening here. And they're talking about doing the same thing in UK. So we Muslims have to have power. Okay, we cannot change it. This is how the world is today. So a person should try to seek, of course, worldly benefit, but not at the expense of the religion. There's also the conversion of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. Another significant addition to the strength of Islam was the conversion of Umar ibn Khattab in Dhul Hijjah of the 6th year of prophethood. So the 6th year of prophethood. 3 days following the conversion of Hamza, Umar radiallahu anhu became a Muslim. So of course, Umar was a man of fearless courage and determination. He was feared and respected in Mecca. He tortured the Muslims so much before becoming a Muslim. Sometimes he would torture some slave, and then he would go away telling her, what, I only stopped torturing you because I'm bored. He was really strong, and he basically had a mind of his own, radiallahu anhu, and that's why when he became Muslim, as Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, ever since Umar became a Muslim, we have been a'izza, proud as Muslims. As you will see, that was the only time when Muslims were finally able to pray openly in Kaaba. So, how did he become a Muslim? The Prophet ﷺ once raised his hand in prayer and made dua. The Prophet ﷺ's dua is answered. He says, Allahumma a'izz al-Islam bi'ahabbi al-rajulayni ilayk, bi'Umar ibn al-Khattab or bi'Ubay ibn Jahl bin Hisham. O Allah, give strength to Islam, especially through one of the two men, through Umar. Either Umar ibn al-Khattab or Umar Abu Jahl bin Hisham. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Umar radiallahu anhu al-Khattab for that privilege. So obviously, how he became a Muslim is that one day he got upset and he said, look, this is a big problem with Muhammad ﷺ. I'm going to go kill him. So he picked up his sword, going to kill the Prophet ﷺ. So one of the people met him, asking him, where are you going? He said, I'm going to kill Muhammad ﷺ. He's like, well, why don't you take care of your own family first? You know, your sister and her husband, they became Muslims. He's like, what? So basically, he wants to deal with his sister and her husband first before going to Prophet ﷺ. So he went to his sister's house, and when he approached, he heard Al-Khabbab bin Arath, one of the companions, reading verses from Surah Taha to his sister, Fatima, and her husband. So when they heard Umar radiallahu anhu come in, they were scared, so they hid the Quran. Khabbab went all the way inside the house. Umar radiallahu anhu came in, he basically struck the husband of his sister, his brother-in-law, and then his sister came to the help of her husband. So he struck her as well. But then when he saw her bleeding, he kind of like was shaken. It's his sister, right? And then, he calmed down. He's like, what are you guys reading? So, she told him it's the Quran. He's like, let me see it. She says, no, you have to go and take a shower first because you are impure. You have to take a shower, like, so that you can touch the Quran. Because, he was impure, he was a polytheist. So, finally, when she recited those verses to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided his heart, and he recognized that that's no poetry, that's no words of soothsayers, that it's actually the truth. So he became a Muslim. And he radiallahu anhu, before this incident, another incident happened to him. So Islam actually found its way to his heart slowly. He radiallahu anhu narrates saying that once I left my house and I headed to the Kaaba, and then I saw the Prophet ﷺ praying, and then I overheard him reciting the beginning of Surah Al-Haqqa. So Umar radiallahu anhu said to himself, by Allah, this is poetry as the Quraysh have said, talking about the Quran. Umar radiallahu anhu. But then Prophet ﷺ said in Surah Al-Haqqa, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تُؤْمِنُونَ. This is verily the word of an honored messenger. That means the Prophet ﷺ or Jibreel alayhi salam, who brought it to the Prophet ﷺ. So this Quran is the word of an honored messenger, which he has brought from Allah. It is not the word of a poet. Little do you believe. So Umar was thinking this to himself, and the Prophet ﷺ was answering what he was thinking in the Quran. Then Umar said, oh, then he must be a soothsayer. Then the following verse says, وَلَا بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ تَنزِيلٌ مِّن رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Nor is it the word of soothsayer or a fortune teller. Little is that you remember. This is a revelation sent down from the Lord of Al-Alameen. Umar then said, then Islam came into my heart. So he would think something, and the Quran that the Prophet was reciting would respond to what is in his heart. But of course, it wasn't automatic for him to become a Muslim. But after these incidents, he became a Muslim, and then he went to the Prophet ﷺ to declare his Islam. When the Sahaba with the Prophet ﷺ saw him coming, they got scared because he had the sword in his hand. But Hamza radiallahu anhu said, let him come. If he comes as a friend, we'll welcome him. If he comes as an enemy, we'll kill him. So, subhanAllah, when you see a strong Muslim, life for him is like meaningless, right? You fight until death, it doesn't matter, right? But here, radiallahu anhu, Umar entered, and Prophet ﷺ came and grabbed him, and he said, is it not time for you, O son of Al-Khattab, for you to become Muslim? Prophet ﷺ was not afraid. So, what Umar, when he used to ride on horses, his feet would touch the ground. This is how tall he was, subhanAllah. Prophet ﷺ grabbed him, it's like he's not scared of him. And then he shook him, told him, is it not time for you to become a Muslim? But he says, yes, indeed, I become a Muslim. So then, why was he named Al-Faruq? I'm going to finish in a minute. What was he named? Al-Faruq. Immediately after he became a Muslim, he's looking for trouble. Oh, Prophet Muhammad Sallam, are we on the truth? Yes. So why are we hiding? Let's go to Mecca. Let's go to Kaaba. So they went in two groups, one headed by Hamza, one headed by Umar radiallahu anhu, and went to Kaaba and going to pray openly. Tell Quraysh, come if you will. So he was named Al-Faruq because he was the criterion between truth and falsehood. And subhanAllah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, if there was going to be prophet after me, it was going to be Umar. Because in many opinions he gave, radiallahu anhu, the Quran is revealed confirming to his opinion. Like for example, in the Battle of Badr, he radiallahu anhu, when the 70 mushriks were taken prisoners of war in Badr, Umar radiallahu anhu said, don't set them free, kill them. The Prophet, he traded them for other prisoners. Basically he taught them whoever teaches the Muslims to read and write, we set them free, etc. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah saying that, ما كان لنبي أن يكون له أسرى حتى يدخل في الأرض. A prophet should not have prisoners until he has done an enormous harm to his enemies, so that they can stop attacking you. But he ﷺ had a different idea, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave that ijtihad from him. And also Umar radiallahu anhu was the reason for Allah to reveal the ayah of al-hijab, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the free women, not the slave women, the free women to cover all of their bodies. They would only leave one eye for them, they can see. But the slave girls, they can show their faces. Okay, because there were two types of women in the Islamic society before. And Umar radiallahu anhu would not let the slave girls cover their faces, because he would tell them, don't imitate the free women. Because as you know what happens today, a woman is passing, you have some men who try to commit the evil act with them. But of course, this was not known for the free women. Only slave women would do that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the free women to cover their faces so that men would know that these are free women and they're not for that type of actions. So don't harm them. ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَنْ يُعْرَفْنَ بِأَنَّهُنَّ أَحْرَارٌ فَلْيُؤْذَيْنَ. So when a woman covers her face, men know that she is a free woman. She's not a slave girl. So they're not going to try to commit zina with her, because free women don't commit zina. As Hind told the Prophet ﷺ, when Hind is the wife of Abu Sufyan, after the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ gave bay'ah to the women that they should not, one of the things they should not do is to commit zina. So Hind told him, "Oh Prophet, does a free woman commit zina?" In other words, it's unheard of. This is in Jahiliyyah. So basically the women that commit zina, may Allah save us and you from this evil thing, have the personalities of slave girls. So we'll stop here today. If you have any questions.